Merry Christmas and happy holidays, Rogue Nation. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of While You Were Working. You know, if you're watching this real time, there are only 14 days left before the big Christmas holiday. You know, this most wonderful time of the year is known for being full of a lot of hustle and bustle, with a list that's way too long and not enough time to do it. As I was thinking about that, you know, business professionals like us, every day of the year is like that. Well, lucky for us, today on the show, we have a student of productivity who's here to bust through all the myths of the long hours and help us to see a different way. I'd like to welcome to the show Kyle Lacy. Kyle is an author. He's author of 3 books, actually. He's a speaker. And he's also the marketing executive at a learning software company that focuses on, yep, you guessed it, improved productivity. Hey, Kyle, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that you're a student of productivity, but I also know that you're pretty obsessed with the Civil War. And I also know that you have a goal in your life of being able to visit all those major battlefields. And so I'm curious to know, how did all of that come to be, and how's your goal coming?
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. The goal for the battlefields slowed down when I had kids, or
kids are the worst.
When my wife had the kids and we were raising kids. However, it's going well. I'm going to try to do it. A long life ahead to get it done. You know, I think that the Civil War and I think in general military is something like historical. The historical context of military and conquest, which we'll talk about in this interview, is always interesting to me.
There must be some sort of connection between that and productivity and the business realm. There's probably some great allegory there.
Yeah, and I'll give the listeners, the viewers, some books that they should check out to kind of connect with that. But the first one is definitely Confederates in the Attic, which we will link to, I'm guessing, right?
Confederates in the Attic. We got it. You got it. We'll be in the show notes for everybody.
Oh, we'll talk about it throughout the show for sure.
Well, excellent. Well, one of the things that we're known for here at Rogue is just trying to stand out. We want to do things just a little bit different, and we invite people come on the show who have taken that as a mantra in their life as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that time when you just were figuring out, you know what, I just have to do something a little different. I'm going to have to stand out in order to make my way in this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I started an agency really early on in life. I think I was 24, right out of college. And what I found was we got really good at selling, but we started getting beat by major agencies. Like, I would walk in the room at 24. I had hair back then. Chip, you are blessed with a head of hair. Congratulations. So what I loved about it was, walked in the room, we were really good at selling, but the major agencies would beat us every time on branding, on website design, everything. And so at the time, this is 2008, we decided to do social media consulting because we were 24 years old and we thought we knew what the hell we were talking about with MySpace and Facebook.
We all did.
Yes, we did.
Yes.
And it worked. Like with the books, that eventually brought on the books that I wrote early on with Twitter Marketing for Dummies. And it worked because perception was, which I think is very important to all of marketing, productivity, and everything. Perception was that we were the experts in social, and that helped us differentiate, and it helped us look different. It helped me look different than everybody else that was in the market at the time. And this really helped us grow our business, and eventually led to everything with me going into software.
I love it. Well, and I love that that's the intro to where you started having this passion for the productivity angle and all of those things as well. I think at the end of the day, all of us really want to do great work. We want to be highly productive with those things that we're doing. And, I think if we had the ability, I think everybody would kind of raise their hands and say, yes, I would absolutely love an extra hour in my day to learn something. It would be great to always push out that amazing content that's highly relevant that everybody wants to see, et cetera. I know that you've got a really great story of how you were tasked with overhauling an entire website in 6 weeks. That sounds For most places that is like really, really fast, number one. But number two, it seems like an impossible task. We just really don't have the tools and the processes to kind of help us at that level of productivity. So what were some of those things that you were seeing that kind of led you to this aha moment that said, you know what, I need to figure out how we maximize productivity?
Dr. Julie Gerner, and Dr. Julie Gerner is a productivity coach, and I spent a lot of time with her. She taught me the ideas of work blocks, of prioritization, and it led me to believe that you have to prioritize everything. So when we're talking about a website redesign in 6 weeks, it means that the entire marketing team had to get rid of everything else they were doing and just prioritize that project. I think a lot of times as professionals, we spend way too much time on minute tasks, and that lead to us just being too busy to get anything done. And if you're not doing something and sitting down and doing it for a 60 or 90-minute time frame and doing it well, you're not being as productive as you could. And I learned that from Dr. Julie Gerner, and that I try to instill that in the marketing team to say, there are some things that you can push. And I think a lot of times we just try to do everything at once, but in reality, there's not a lot of things that we deal with in a software company that's life or death.
Unfortunately,
like a Civil War soldier would, or somebody in World War II, or anybody in military that's in life or death situations. So that's very, very important to remember, is that productivity is based off of prioritization.
So I think that's a really good point, and it really is. It's a pipe dream to just think that if you have this goal out there that's just magically going to happen if you don't actually put some sort of process and procedures in place in order to make that happen. I know that you've got 3 steps that, as you're coaching people through maximizing their productivity, there are 3 different areas that you'd like to talk about. Would you share that with the Rogue audience?
Yeah, first one's work blocks. Second one's an agile approach, and the third one I think is project owners. So I'll go through each of them. Work blocks. I try to set 60 to 90-minute work blocks every day of the week. So on Friday, I'm planning my next week, and I try to do two a day. So that's between an hour and 3 hours of work time, or 2 hours and 3.5 hours of work time.
Sure.
Where I am in a room, no Slack, no email, no phone, nothing. And I'm focusing on 2 or 3 tasks that I need to get done in that 60-minute time frame. That's number one. I encourage all my team to do it. Everybody has to do work blocks moving into each week. The second
do you find
one,
that it goes faster on that 60 to 90 blocks? Do you find that you set aside 90 minutes, but goodness gracious, you're able to do it in 45?
Yeah, and then you're supposed to set it up to where then you have like your backlog that you can throw in to get done. Usually, there are some cases where that happens, but usually you're spending the entire 90 minutes on.
It's so important that's why it became part of the work block. And
yes.
So you're gonna be able to dedicate a good 90 minutes to it.
Absolutely. And it could be a list of 20 little things that you need to get done. But so many times we have multiple screens open, and if you are pulled away, let's say you spend 20 minutes trying to write something, and then somebody walks in the room and says something to you and you look away, you've lost the productivity of that 20 minutes. And it takes you another 20 minutes to get to the point where you were at. So that's why it's very, very important that you set aside work blocks with no distractions. And that's why, side note, that I think that open office concepts are terrible. I think it's killing productivity. That's a whole nother show.
That's another episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 2 is agile. So we at Lessonly, our marketing team, we practice daily stand-ups, where everybody shows what they're working on that day and talk about any blockers or that they might have had the day before. This allows us to be able to check each other on if we're spending time on the right things on a daily basis. Really hard to scale that. Our marketing team, our demand gen team's 11 people, and our outbound sales team's 17. So 17, it's really hard to do that daily, but 11 seems to be a good approach to that. And then the third thing is project owners. You can have processes and you can have projects, but if you don't have one owner of that process or project, it usually fails. You can't have more than one. You can't have 3 people running a project. You need one person running that project or process, and make sure you're documenting it. Like if we have the agile approach, we are documenting all that so that we're enabling people in the right way.
Which probably then helps the scale part.
Oh yeah,
pass that on.
And we use, cobbler's kid's shoes, right? I mean, we use Lessonly to do that enablement because that is what it's used for. So it's great that we build software that allows people to enable because we use it ourselves.
Well, that's great. And the fact that you use it says a great testament of all of that. So we'll also connect to that as well, just so for those of you who would like to take part with technology and a software that might help us do some of this stuff. I'll make sure that that's a connection as well.
Absolutely.
A lot of us, we kind of go through our days, we work a lot of hours. In many cases, it's kind of a badge of honor. Like, I'm working a lot of hours and I'm really productive and I'm really busy is really the real key there. We wear it like a badge of honor. And, we all say we don't like all the long hours, but kind of we do. So how do you help people really adapt to this whole methodology and this whole new way of thinking? And, I'm sure people fall off and they need to come back on. How do you help people stay accountable? And what are you doing for those people who just, kind of like want to do it the way it's always been done, and those longer hours mean more to them?
Yeah. And if you want to do 80 hours a week, fine. It's scientifically proven that human beings can do 50 hours a week really, really well. And then after that, it just goes downhill. And I am a huge, and I say this to the team, I'm a huge proponent of balance. And I don't believe there's like a separation between work and life. I think that it has to live together in order for it to work. But if you're doing 80 hours a week, you are not removing yourself enough to be creative and innovative outside of work. Like me taking the kids to get a Christmas tree, it could lead to me thinking about something with work, but I had to remove myself out of that in order for me to be as productive as possible. So the people that want to do 80 hours, what I tell them is that's fine. But the reality is you're probably going to burn out, and especially in high growth venture backed software companies, that is mostly the case because we move so fast because most of the time we're burning money. In a good, that's the SaaS model, right? For the most part. So you have to maintain productivity. You have to maintain a right balance because you will burn out much faster than somebody that has it together. And it's just very, very important to remember that the reality is if you are productive, 50 hours is plenty of time to get done what you need to get done.
Well, and let's take it from the other side then. It's a new year coming up, new you, new leaf turning over. People want to do this. People are going to fall down. They're going to go back into their old systems. How have you, with your teams, how have you helped with team accountability and just people holding each other accountable to working in agile methodologies and to working in work blocks?
So we could probably do a better job, honestly, to be very transparent with you, on keeping everybody accountable on work blocks. What we do is the daily stand-ups keeps people accountable on how much they're doing. So for our stand-ups, every member of the marketing team has a list of what they're doing by time. So each person should have around 8 hours. If they have more than 8 hours, then a team member is available is tasked to say, why do you have more than 8 hours? You need help. Or did you have a blocker yesterday where our CX leader didn't respond to you or whatever, right? There's tons of different ways. There's tons of different blockers. But that stand up is meant to be the accountability portion of, hey, you said you were going to do 3 work blocks, but I don't see them on your board. Why is that? And the team is we have a close enough team, and the culture was built around the idea that we are vulnerable and we do share before we're ready, and we do give feedback as long as we're doing it in a way that's appreciative, not driving conflict.
It makes a lot of sense. I know I'm thinking as I'm listening to all this here at the Rogue team, I think there are some of us who kind of go off into our own worlds and we do that. We certainly aren't doing it intentionally. Yeah. And I think that's the real important thing, is to try to find out how to do that intentionally, and then to try to hold each other accountable to, we don't always move as fast as we want to, or we think it should have gone faster. And, to be able to walk out of a room and say after 90 minutes, this is what I accomplished, and I'm really, excited about it, and I know I moved the client forward, or I moved our business forward. I think that's a really, that means a lot. And so
the reality is you have to be vulnerable. And our CEO, Max Yoder, talks about it all the time. If you're not vulnerable, then you're not building trust among a team. So me standing up in front of the team at stand up saying, you know what, I screwed up. I didn't set any work blocks last week. I need to do that. I have way too many meetings. I need to change that. Then we are building trust amongst each other, which allows us to be more vulnerable and to move faster because of that. A lot of teams, there's not that vulnerability, so nobody wants to fail. So when you have that type of mindset in a team, it's really, really, really hard to be the best because you're not being human. And I
think it's interesting too that we're accountable with a deliverable, and a lot of us are accountable with maybe even the money that's been budgeted to us that we're allocated to spend. But I don't think a lot of us take that time to be accountable for the actual time. And what you said on that stand up, to be able to stand up and say, here's how those 8 hours were spent. Different decisions get made. Absolutely. When you're standing up to say, this is how the 8 hours. I think this is great. This is really, really good stuff. As this whole show, the premise of it is that a lot of us want to do really great work, and we get so busy doing the work and doing things that we forget to look up and look around and say, something's happening in the world that I didn't even notice and I didn't pay attention to. And that's why we invite people to come on and talk about different topics. But as you're thinking about that, and as we're thinking about 2019, is there something that people are just not paying attention to that they really should be?
I mean, what we've been talking about,
this whole show.
I don't think that people spend enough time thinking about how they're planning their day, how many meetings they have, how are you thinking about the productivity of your team? Because if they burn out, you got a big problem, right? Moving into 2019, I think it's just about saying, guys, you know what? We don't need 8 meetings a day. Like, we could take a Thursday where it's no meeting Thursday. We need to be more proactive about talking about the meetings we're having, the tasks we're doing, and making sure that everybody is on the same page on productivity. And then you hire Dr. Julie Gertner to come in and give you a crash course in, the neuroscience behind productivity, because it's scientific. It's not me just, it's not Tim Ferriss saying, oh, you can do this in 4 hours.
4 hour work week. Yes.
Right. Like normal human beings. I just think it's fundamental to us as humans, and moving into 2019, I think any team can be way more productive, can accomplish more if they're thinking about work blocks and making sure that you're being vulnerable and proactive about setting those work blocks.
Well, this is awesome. We spend a lot. It's the holiday season. It's all about gifts. This is a gift that you can give to yourself. This is a gift you can give to your business. If you're a business leader. And I know that in my case, this is going to be required listening here at Rogue. We're going to try to figure out how to do some of this stuff. If you've got any checklists or anything like that, Kyle, that you've used in your coaching or something like that, I'd love to link it in the show notes here as well. So I'll connect with you about getting all of that.
Sure.
I just thank you so much for taking time out of your day. You obviously had to budget this time away from what you're doing, and I appreciate that. Thank you for spending the time with our audience here. And Rogue Nation, all the links to everything we've been talking about will all be available here in just a few hours over on the Rogue Think blog. And you'll have an opportunity to connect with Kyle, and you can follow him on LinkedIn and all that good stuff. This is the last episode we're going to do for 2018. So we will be back in 2019 and with all sorts of new things to talk about while you were working. So thanks again for joining us here in 2018. Have a very, very happy holiday season, and we will see you in 2019. Bye.